head on.
Just hey, baby, hey. Greetings. This is the Sweetwater Collective. We are going to conclude our teachings on Egungun today, and then we're going to move into teachings on Ori. But we're just getting started. I know it's a little bit after 2, so give me a moment just to pull everything together, and then we'll go ahead and start. Peace, love, and light to everybody in the cyber realm. So give us just a few minutes here. I got to invest in a tablet so that I'm not working with this thing. Well, I was gonna call them back in here, but I was trying to wait for Miss Gloria. Do you know how far she is? And I see you dinner drinking some other kind of fancy water. She just looked at me and rolled her eyes. And what is that? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the libation. Little people. Go and ask them to come out, please. She's not coming today.
The only one missing is Cindy. You remember that picture they took at
Oh,
yeah. And he's all big now.
So now you gotta take it again and put Kelway in the picture.
I know it. And he wasn't here yet. I don't think he was here
Oh,
yet.
you sure wasn't?
Because they were still so small.
Oh.
Is he a boy?
It's a girl.
It's a girl. It's a girl. That's why we have a stocking for her.
Can you go make sure the door is open for Auntie Gloria to get in?
Gloria.
Yes.
It is.
You'll see her when she comes.
Oh, you know what?
Come on in, Mama.
Gloria? I don't know.
You the main attraction, girl.
Okay, this is y'all. Wait a minute, I'm gonna put y'all in line for you.
Yeah.
You on this side.
Kamari, get in the picture. You in the picture.
Okay, you gotta be right here.
Kelly's gonna be in it, but Kelly he was newborn. This was the picture they took at Kelly's name.
No, you don't know. This is I'm putting y'all in order. How y'all want to so we got to take right and
Kelly, go take a picture.
Yeah, you and Amari gotta come get in the picture.
No, Nubia, you was right beside Kamari.
Go take the picture. Y'all three and then you two over here. Okay.
How are you?
I love you.
Thank you.
Okay, but y'all so silly. Okay.
Kelly, you go take a picture.
Okay, y'all squeeze it in.
Squeeze it.
That's not cute. That is
Nah,
not
put-
a nice smile.
Do a handsome smile.
Smile, scoot up. Okay, Kevin, I need you to squeeze in. Y'all squeeze in.
Nubia, put your legs down so they can scoot up close. And scoot close to Kamari.
You right here. You right here. And y'all lean in this way.
Put your legs down.
Look over at me, Mama. Look at my room. You're the only one not looking. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Big cheeses.
She.
Mara, you can look at me. Everybody else freeze. Amara, look at me.
What about this?
Thank you.
Yes.
I could
And you got to collage it.
Yes.
Put them side by side.
I called that. It's a bunny.
Hey, good.
Amara, you see your cousin?
That's one of our colors.
Nothing on the table. All right. So
You
we're
know
gonna.
what? That's one of my colors.
Yeah, what do you say? How do you say it nicely?
How do you ask my name?
How do you ask?
How do you ask?
Amara, don't put it on the table.
We're getting ready to do location too, so you need to come up here and sit with the children so we can get started,
That's
okay?
not how you ask. You ask, do we need to go take our trip to Cleaners Room?
No.
How do you ask?
Sit, please.
Have a seat.
I don't want him to play with my car.
Come here. Come on. Come on.
You need to tell me.
Mm-mm.
What do you want me to?
All right. Omi tutu, omi tutu, omi tutu, tutu ori, tutu emi, tutu aye, tutu laroye. Ìbà ṣẹ́ Olódùmarè, ìbà tirere káyé, ìbà tíwọ̀ òjò, ìbà tíwọ̀ ọ̀run, ìbà lẹ́gẹ̀rẹ̀ àfọkọ̀yẹ̀rẹ̀, ìbà rúmúlà ìlérí ìpín, ìbà ìgbà ìmùlẹ̀ ọjọ́ kan tún, ìbà ìgbà ìmùlẹ̀ ọjọ́ kan sí, ìbà kánì ní ìwé ń wọ rúmúlẹ̀, ìbà àkọ́dá, ìbà àṣẹ̀dá, ìbà wà ní àfínjú ẹ̀jẹ̀, ìbà àbọ̀bọ̀ ìkúnni dẹ̀lẹ̀ ní ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ sẹ́ Olódùmarè ìbà ìtọ̀run, ìbà ìtọ̀run rọ̀wà, ìbà tọ̀nù, ìbà olúwọ̀, ìbà olúbọ̀lú fàtìmíṣẹ̀, ìbà ojúpọ̀nù, Bokuno mera hochiko fizunu, iba bojito no chito vizunu, iba ielo shashango iniola, iba oluwa fatayi fagbenmo, iba petibi faleri fagbenmo, iba bogboy deli fagbenmo, iba bogboy deli amushan, iba agbomola bi orisha, iba abeokuta Nigeria, iba oloko Meji Village Nigeria, iba ile ife, iba oyotunji Village South Carolina, iba oba sejimale for me the first, iba oba sejimale for me the second. Ashe. Àṣẹ oríṣọ, kò sí ikú, kò sí fatibo, kò sí ọ̀fọ̀, kò sí wàhálà, fún wa àlàáfíà, fún wa ìrẹ́, fún wa ìwà pẹ̀lẹ́, fún wa bọ́bọ̀ ọ̀bọ̀. Àṣẹ, àṣẹ, àṣẹ o. All right. So we're going to conclude our discussion of Egungun. So it conclude our discussion of ancestors that we started last week. And then from there, we'll move forward into discussion of Ori. So the the energy of the ancestors is the spirit that animates each one of us. Take your finger out of your mouth, son. From in the language of our ancestors, the process of existence, it includes a journey that they call atunwa. In the Yoruba language, anything that has the term tun in it, T-U-N, means returning, coming back. Atunwa is to return to the physical plane. So this is part of the journey of existence. But within existence, nothing is destroyed. Nothing ever ceases to be. And everything moves in a cyclical motion. So everything moves in a circle. So with everything moving in a circle, that includes the spirit that animates you. So the beginning of your existence, of your physical existence, is when this spirit enters into the womb of your mother, right? This spirit, part of this spirit, enters into the womb of your mother. It begins the process of becoming a human being. Once that spirit decides to come out of the womb of your mother, it is the spirit, it is the Ori of your mother that goes and retrieves the rest of it at the moment of crowning. And it goes and retrieves the rest of it for you. And then this is the time when you choose to come to the physical plane. Okay? When you come to the physical plane, You live, right? You live this life, this physical life. You do things, you have experiences, things happen to you. All of these things are happening to this spirit, right? The spirit is what is living inside this body. All right. When you come to the end, hands out your mouth, of this journey, then this particular vessel that you've been living in is no longer useful. So you let this vessel go as a spirit and you return to the spirit realm, to what we call Orun. It's the ancestral realm. And so then you continue to exist in that realm until such time that you decide to what? Atumwa, and return to the womb of a mother in your family lineage. So that is the complete and total understanding of ancestors and what it means to be an ancestor. Now, from that perspective, what we understand is that spirits, particular spirits, have decided to create what we call idele, families, lineages. So all of these spirits stay together because they have particular things that they decided to do as a lineage for the earth and for the community at large. So these spirits stay together. You incarnate back into the same family over and over again. Okay? So this is why this is why your ancestors take such good care of you. They have, and this is why your ancestors are the first spirit that you should begin to contact, because that is the spirit in the spirit realm that has a vested interest in you. Why? Because how you are living this life is going to determine how they live, should you be the one that they decide to incarnate through. What if you're not? What if you're not the one that they decide to incarnate through, but they incarnate into your sister or they incarnate into your brother? Still, how you are living is going to affect how your nieces and nephews live, right? You will still have contact with them. You will still, so it is not only tied to people who are physically giving birth to children, but it is tied to your family. So your ancestors want you to live well, if we look at it from a strictly selfish perspective. Because when they return to that family, they want to be returning to a situation that's living well. So it is the responsibility of the family to take care of the ancestors. When you take care of the ancestors, they take care of you. You take care of your ancestors by remembering them. You take care of your ancestors by knowing their lives so that you can know how to live properly. Most importantly, in West African and Central African tradition, you take care of your ancestors by calling their names. You do not let their names slip into those unremembered. The unremembered forces of the ancestors is what becomes Dambalawedo. This is when there's no one alive that remembers to call your name anymore. And so then you slip into Dambalawedo, which is a force that is more difficult to access than just grandma, whose name I remember, whose name that I can call. So you call upon your ancestors. You call the names of your ancestors. You teach your children about the lives of your ancestors so that their interaction is as if these people are still here. When your children do something, you say, "Oh, that reminds you, your uncle so and so used to do the same thing. Oh, my mama used to do the same. You look just like mama when you're doing that. You sound just like mama when you." These are things that keep those ancestors around us. So when we're interacting with each other and remembering the ancestors, they're there. They are present. They are with you. So these are ways that you keep them around you. You remember, as we talked about last week, to feed them when you eat. When you're having something festive going on, you include them in those festivities. There's something festive going on in your home where your ancestral shrine is. Yeah, you interact with them, communicate with them, because that individual has not ceased to exist. That individual has just stopped being on the physical plane in that way. You know, when a child is born, you check and see which ancestor this is that has returned. Generally, you know, because they look like them. They have a vibration that feels like them. So you ask, which ancestor is this? Who is this that has returned? And then there are names that go with that. Nubia is Yejide, because it is Yejide means my mother awakes and returns to the house. My mother awakes and comes back. So she's Yejide. That's that particular ancestor that has returned. There are boys that are Babatunde, father has returned. There are girls that are Yetunde, mother has returned. Okay, these are complete and total acknowledgments of the fact that that lineage is not ever broken. I always make the point that as people of African descent, in order to maintain intact mental health, you have to be in contact with your ancestors. It is your ancestors that teach you and show you how to live this physical life properly. It is your ancestors that will keep you sane. Because anything that you're facing here, they've already faced it. One of them has faced it, right? Some things, most of them may have faced it. But anything that you're experiencing, one of them has faced it. So all that you ever have to do is ask. All that you ever have to do is tap into that spirit and ask, okay, how is it that we collectively deal with this? Right now in this country, for example, for those of us who live in the U.S., there's a lot of political unrest, a lot of crazy political things going on. For me, while, I am assuming that it is somewhat a cause for concern, because I grew up underneath both of my grandmothers, is nothing compared to the things that they had to live through. It's nothing compared to the things that they told me about. So my level of concern is low, I have to say. However that sounds, however people take that, my level of concern is low, because I was raised by two women that went through pretty much everything. And they were raised by women who went through everything, and raised by women. Those and their mothers were raised by women who had literally been enslaved. So having that ancestral teaching, them being able to tell me, these are the things that my mother told me that happened when she was a little girl, and these are the things that happened to her mother. Having that ancestral teaching gives me the ability to be calm and at ease. Because not only do I know that I have a way to ask, what are the ways to combat this, but I'm also completely clear that I am built for that particular fight. Built for the fight and built to be victorious in the fight, right? If I wasn't built to be victorious, I wouldn't be sitting here. But that's the stock that I come from. So these are the ways that our ancestors keep us sane. We know that nothing is lost. We feel completely rooted. You know that you have a foundation. You know where you come from. You know what you come from. This is how your ancestors keep you sane. Your ancestors remind you of what is actually for you. You can look at the lives of your ancestors. Do you go to the restroom? And see what is for you. And what I mean by that is paying attention to your ancestors, speaking with your ancestors and focusing on your ancestors helps you to be clear on the perspective that you should look at the world from. Right? This is how this is literally affecting you in particular. So I think that's it. I think that's all that did anybody have any questions as far as Egungun was concerned? I didn't want to not cover. I didn't feel like that I covered those simplistic points. Yes, sir.
You said that two means to return. What about Daddy's name?
Well, the thing about Daddy is that he was born in Guyana, right? And most of the African people, well, a great deal of the African people who were born in Guyana are from Yoruba land, right? So he probably has Yoruba ancestors. So in his family, Tunde is just a name that is given to a son, right? It's a normal name that boys are given in his family. But so why do you think that is?
My daddy is.
Why do you think that? How do you think that name came to be normal to be given in his family?
passed down
From where?
some events that you can
Right, from his Yoruba ancestors. And so when his Yoruba ancestors named their first son, who was born in Guyana, Tunde, then what did they mean for it to mean? Right, someone returned. So it may have been Baba Tunde. It may your name is Ayo Tunde, which means joy returns. Right, it could have been anything. Tunde, right? So they named one of their sons born in Guyana Tunde, and then the next son may have gotten Tunde. A son after that may have, all the way down to Daddy, who now they call Tunde, right? His auntie, I can't remember which auntie. I think she's already an ancestor. Was the one that told grandma that's what you should name him when he's born. But grandma decided not to name him that. She decided to name him Travis instead of Tunde. But they still call him that, right? Everybody still calls him Tunde as though that were his name. But that is where that name comes from. It's a very good observation. When I first met him, that's what I told him. I was like, well, that's a Yoruba name. When I first went around his family and heard them calling him that, and I was like, you know, that's a Yoruba name. And he was like, no, it's not. It's a Guyanese name, right?
We have a friend named Tuesday. He performs at all the African dance classes.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so his name, so now you know what his name means, right?
That's his actual name.
Right. But now you know what it means. Your actual name is Yoruba too. So now you know what his name means, right? Returns. Excellent. Okay. I'm just checking my book to make sure. So the book that I'm teaching from now, the information on the different Orisha, comes from my first book, on Akabani. And that is available on my website as well as Amazon. I'll type it out in the comments for the videos if so that you guys will have the title. Were you getting ready to ask me something else? Okay. So is that it? Do you guys, did anybody have any questions as far as ancestors and how to worship ancestors? I know that last week I covered the ancestral shrine. Did I cover the ancestral shrine
You did.
and everything that goes on? Yes, ma'am. Hmm. Okay. Um, so for every force of nature that you want to bring into your sphere, whether it's your home or whether it's, a nice large estate that you have, then you have a place where you honor and revere that force. So here in the West, and that's a very Western concept. The concept that the way that we view altars and shrines on this side of the globe in the Western Hemisphere is our way of doing it. When you visit Africa, when you visit Nigeria, it's not that they don't have altars and shrines, but it's a completely different concept than what we're used to. Okay, so here in the West, we have the tradition of the ancestral shrine. It is, if you go into the house of an older Black woman in the South, it's very rare that you're not going to see one. Okay, and that is not what she is calling it. But I cannot remember being in anyone's house as a small child and there not being a table, literally a table, or maybe the top of a piano, or a place in the house where all of the pictures in that area were pictures of people who were deceased. Okay, so in our ancestral shrine here in the West, we have pictures of our deceased relatives. No one in the pictures can be anyone living. Okay, it is our tradition to have a white candle. You can use white or you can use purple. White is the color of the ancestors. Purple is the color of Oya, who is the mother of the ancestors. We have a tradition of having, because we're here in the West and because of the strong Nikan Takla or Native American influence, we have a tradition of having tobacco on our ancestral shrines. Okay, and when you visit West Africa, tobacco does not grow there, so there is no tobacco. They do not smoke to the deities. As a matter of fact, they see that as an affrontery. That is rude to have smoke around the deities. They don't burn incense. They don't. All this stuff is Western, but here in the West, we have tobacco. Okay, we have 9 pennies that we put on our shrine. We do the 9 pennies because 9 is the number of Oya and copper is the metal of Oya. Okay, you have some vessel on your shrine that holds water. Water is a method of communication with the spirit realm. So you have a vessel that holds water. It can be 9 small containers of water. Before my fire, I had 9 little tiny shot glasses that my grandmother used to own. That was what was on my shrine. But you have 9 small containers of water. You can have 1 large container of water. And you change the water daily. Then you have a list of names of your righteous ancestors on your shrine. Okay? You only want to invoke the energy of your ancestors that were righteous. Because those ancestors, and when we say righteous, then remember that we mean ancestors who did things that helped our family. Everything that Black people have to do in the United States in order to provide for their family may not always be what this country considers legal. Okay, so we're not basing our righteousness upon what this country considers legal. We're basing our righteousness upon if they were an asset to the family, if they were family centered, if they worked for the family, if they worked to make the family stronger and better. Okay, I have a grandfather that sold alcohol when alcohol was illegal. You know, had a speakeasy, and what he did for a living was sold alcohol. But that doesn't make him unrighteous. You know, that made us a prominent family in our city. So you know, that's seen as something that was good and something that's helpful. So things like that you judge based off of family. Okay. You put your right a list of the name of your righteous ancestors on your ancestral shrine. And those are the things that you have to have. Really, all that you have to have is water and a candle. If you're somewhere where you know people are going to be opposed to you practicing the tradition, you don't have to do it elaborate. If you're creating your own, then you can go as elaborate as you want to. You have a nice white cloth. The ancestral altar is always low. It's always close to the ground. It's always in a foundational corner of your home, an important, prominent corner of your home. The Santeria tradition, our Puerto Rican brothers and sisters, used to put it in the kitchen so that it's always being interactive with, with the entire family. So you can put it in your kitchen if you have enough space in your kitchen. That's part of the tradition. When you invoke your ancestors, you use that list and you call the names of all of your righteous ancestors. You tap on the ground. And here in the West, we also have a tradition of an ancestral staff. I need to make a new one for myself. It's a tall, big piece of wood that you go and gather, and you put long pieces of cloth on it. And when I had one, mine was small, but really it should be big because it should look like the Egungun masquerade. So it should be tall, taller than you, and have this cloth coming down all the way to the ground. And when you invoke your ancestors, you tap this on the ground. Okay? The reason that you do that is because your ancestors and the entire spirit realm, with the exception of 2 or 3 Orisha, is in the earth. Spirit realm, or Rune, is inside Earth Mother Omila. So with the exception of a few Orisha that live in the sky, all the Orisha that we invoke are in the earth. And this is one of the reasons that altars are different in America and Nigeria, because in Nigeria, everything sacred is buried. So when you go to someone's shrine, you don't really see anything because everything sacred is buried because the spirit realm is in the earth. So this is one of the huge differences. So I think, did I cover everything fundamental? Once your shrine is consecrated, then you will have by an ancestral priest or priestess, then you will have 2 vessels. One vessel will contain sacred objects for your mother's lineage. One vessel will contain sacred objects for your father's lineage. But that's once it's consecrated. Each and every individual is fully within their rights to set up an ancestral shrine. Setting up an ancestral shrine does not require an Egungun priest or priestess. Having a consecrated ancestral shrine requires an Egungun priest or priestess. Getting those vessels. But just setting it up, you are within your rights to do that because that's your lineage. That is the spirit that is connected to you. Those are the spirits, I should say, that are connected to you. So you feel the urge to set up a shrine, you are fully within your rights to do that. So I'm looking at mine, trying to make sure I have covered everything. But I think that's it. Yes, sir. We have a list. It's inside Big Buddy's Bible. Mm-hmm. because that is the Bible of my great grandmother. And that's the spirit that I was in the lifetime before this one. And so when I went off to college, my mother gave me that because she wanted me to remember who I was when I went off to college. So that was her gift to me. So that's why we have a Bible. And it has her handwriting in it and notes that she kept and everything. You can, but not right now. So I think that that's it. I'm looking. Well, you can get as elaborate as you would like to. Things that the ancestors like to be offered. The ancestors like to be offered the things that they liked to eat while they were here. You do not cook items with salt to put on the ancestral shrine. If you are feeding them as we do when you eat, then it doesn't make any difference if you put salt in your food. But if you're cooking something specifically for the ancestors, you do not put salt in that. And that is West African, Central African tradition, you know. According to our folklore, that's why we can no longer fly. This is, there's all that folklore about Africans being able to fly. It was because we weren't eating salt. They say that once we got over here, we started eating salt, so we can't fly no more. So I guess Michael Jordan must not eat a lot of salt. That brother is still flying.
His blood pressure is normal.
Yes, the people could fly. That's African American folklore. That's part of our understanding of who we are. And those stories have been passed down for generations about Africans being able to fly all the way back to Africa. Yeah, Bisoro, right? He was flying back to Africa in Brazil. He flew, right? But he didn't fly back to Africa. No, but the length of time that he was able to hold his jump, that's considered flying. So Bisuru, he was like that beetle that could fly. It looked like it couldn't fly, but actually it could, right? That's what Bisuru means. It means beetle. So all of those traditions are West and Central African traditions that we brought here with us. And one of the things that's always said is once y'all start eating that salt, y'all lost that ability to fly. So, but you don't put salt in anything that you're cooking for the ancestors, but you feed them the things that they like to eat. A couple of weeks ago was my mother's birthday, and so her favorite alcoholic beverage was Bailey's Irish Cream. So I made sure that she had for 3 days straight, a nice big old cup of Bailey's Irish Cream on there for her to partake of as she was celebrating her birthday in her room. My grandmother's favorite drink was Mogan Daoud, the Mogan David wine. We as black folk, we call it Mogan David, but we pronouncing that wrong. That's Hebrew. But that was her favorite wine. So when I'm feasting her, then I make sure she has that. So you make sure that they have the things that they like. If you don't know what they liked, then you can never go wrong with white rice. Nice, wonderful, plain white rice. They love that. You can never. Well, yeah. But that's for people who, have that understanding. My daughter is saying fufu, and of course you can't have it. Everybody, all West Africans and Central Africans love fufu. So you can never go wrong with fufu. You can never go wrong with rice. So when you're cooking for them, hey baby, then those are some of the things that you want to be able to serve them. But serve them what it is that you know that they like. Whatever your family is famous for eating, then your ancestors like that. Yes, sir.
How come so much Chinese people they give us those giant boxes? Why they never give them to the ancestors?
Oh, we give a little bit. But you are always free to give more, sir, if you feel like they'll want more of that. But generally, if I'm making rice for the ancestors, I prefer to make it myself as opposed to the Chinese people making it. Because I haven't put the effort into that. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I know my grandmother's well enough to know that that's what they would say. You giving me some rice that somebody else done made. So I would rather make it myself. Yes, ma'am.
One time we made and you said first we have to give some to the ancestors.
Yes, always. Because my grandmother, one of the things she really loved to eat a lot was eggs.
And you didn't even put, did you put salt?
I probably had put something because I was making it for us. But anytime I cook eggs, I think about grandma because she loved eggs and coffee. And yes, everybody's ancestors also loved strong black coffee. This is another Western tradition. Strong black coffee. Everybody's ancestor loves that. Here in the West, we offer our ancestors OT, which is our Yoruba term for gene. You can do gin. If you're in the Caribbean, you can do rum because of course, y'all have a tradition that's tied to rum. So gin, rum, nice, strong, powerful cigars. These are things your ancestors love. The reason that we put specific things on the shrine, as was taught to us by the Matahochi, is because of the journey that your spirit makes. And at certain stops on the journey, once you have left this physical body, you need certain things. The thing I forgot, put a piece of cloth on your shrine for your ancestors. That's the thing I forgot. But at certain stops on the journey, you need specific things. So when your spirit is journeying into the ancestral realm, there will be a stop at which you will need a piece of cloth. And if you don't have a piece of cloth, you cannot make it to the next level. There will be a stop where your ancestors are going to need coins. If there are no coins on the shrine, they can't make it to the next level. There will be a stop where they will need tobacco. If they don't have tobacco, they can't make it to the next level. The final stop, they pause. The other citizens of our room pause and listen to see if there is anyone weeping for you. If they cannot hear the weeping of your family on Earth Mother Onile, then they know that you did not live a good life. So this is why we mourn. This is why African people have a tradition of mourning very dramatically. Yes, hiring mourners. This is why we're loud at our funerals. This is why we the casket jumpers. All this stuff that we do trying to get in. Oh, don't leave me. All that stuff. That's tradition. That is tradition. If you are there mourning silently and quietly, don't nobody in our room hear that. So then it's as if your ancestor was not loved. The expectation. And when I was a child, my mother did not take us to funerals for that reason. Because the mourning was always so dramatic that it could even be frightening. It's just a lot. It's a lot that you feel as an African person. And that is supposed to be expressed. We were raised not to. We were very much right now, AME. And if y'all follow me on Facebook, I told my mother was the original bad and bougie. We was raised deeply bougie. So because of that, we were raised to, mourn quietly. You dabbed at your eyes. But then any of us who are black, we know that's not African, that's not black tradition. Black tradition is to mourn very loudly. My Caribbean brothers and sisters can attest to this as well. The tradition is for it to be very loud, for it to be very dramatic. Nubia, I don't have time to discuss this. Stop. Bring it to me. Yes, ma'am.
So during an Egungun ritual or an Egungun festival, the masquerade with the dancing and the spectacle like we talked about last week, is that part of it? The commotion that comes along with that? Is that it?
Probably. Yeah. I can see that being the same. But yes, Egungun festival too is very loud and dramatic and the way that Egungun re-enters is that same kind of it's the kind of a bedlam. It's what's expected. Just kind of a full release, full emotional release. So yeah, that probably is part of what causes that to have to be so dramatic.
The piece of cloth that's on the shrine, is that the piece of cloth that's covering the shrine or
No.
additional cloth?
No, you should have a little cut piece of cloth. And mine is under something else, but some kind of little tiny piece of cloth. It is best if it is a piece of cloth that was owned, by one of your ancestors who owned one. It could be a handkerchief, something like that, a little piece of a dress or something like that. Those of us who are African centered, you might want to put, if you know where your people are from. Mine is generally a piece of ashoke. A little piece of ashoke because I know I'm from the Ekiti people, so I have a Yoruba piece of cloth. But if you know where your people are from, it would be beautiful to have a piece of cloth from that group of people. Well, did you have another question?
So yeah, okay. So I guess in my mind when I initially was learning about consecrating an ancestor shrine, I thought it included more so just a series of particular prayers, cleansing, setting it up in a particular way. So could you just one more time briefly, what all is involved with consecrating, having an ancestral shrine consecrate, as much as you can share. Yeah.
So okay, two things. One thing, there is a ritual of opening up your ancestral shrine. This is what you do yourself. So this is a ritual of 9 days coming before your altar at the same time every day and invoking the presence of your ancestors. So this is a personal ritual that does not require an Egungun priest or priestess. They generally are the people who will give you the prayer that you're going to say, but they don't have to be there. If they choose to be there, it's fine. They don't have to be there for you to open it up. So that particular thing that you're referring to, that's just you establishing initial communication with your ancestors and saying, I've created a seat for you here in my home. Please come and be here with me. You establish that communication over a 9-day period. So that's what you do. Consecration is a complete and total ritual that has to be done by an Egungun priest or priestess. This takes place over generally a couple of months because you have to gather particular things. So you go and gather these things. You and the priest or priestess will then set up a date or a time. Ebo will be done. You know, your vessels and everything will be fed, and then the Egungun priest or priestess will then draw those ancestors of yours that are still in what we refer to as the watery abyss, pull them forward so that they can then be part of them will then be in these particular vessels for you to access. So that's that ritual. So those are two separate rituals. One is one that you do yourself and that you are completely empowered to do. Another one, because it involves that kind of drawing from the other realm, has to be done by somebody initiated. Yeah. And the best description of the ritual of consecrating ancestral pots or ancestral vessels that I've ever read is actually in, I believe it's in Divine Horsemen, which is by Maya Deren. And she speaks of the ancestral priests drawing the spirits from Guinea. So if you wanted a book that you will be able to find this information in, Divine Horseman by Maya Deren, which is I highly recommend it. Maya Deren she lived her life as a white woman. I do not believe by how she looked that she actually was white, but she is one of the very few white authors or proclaimed white authors on the tradition that I would suggest. But she very much just gave you the information from the Haitian perspective. So it's very beautifully written and very useful. So that's a good description of that ritual that she gives in that book. Did you have another question you want to ask?
No, I just said about the clock.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So I think that that's everything on Egungun. But it just through the whole week, I was like, oh, there was so many things I didn't say. You know, when I was talking about Egungun last time, so I was like, I'll just come back and cover that today. So the next deity that we're going to discuss for the rest of our time today will be Ori. All right. So your Ori is what? Who can tell me of the children what your Ori is? Yes, Ashetuma. It is your head, right? Everything, outside and inside. This whole thing is Ori. So Ori means head.
Or your ancestors.
No, it only means head. Ori. So your Ori, well, I'll give it to you in the story. In the story that our ancestors gave to explain the importance of Ori. In the time before time, all of the Orisha were there with Olodumare. And Olodumare said, tomorrow morning, I will pass out the greatest amount of Ashe to whoever can break the kola nut of Ashe. Okay? Kola nut in the Yoruba tradition is essential. When we came here, the same essential nature that we used to give kola nut, go sit with mommy in my room, we gave to the coconut. Okay, that became the coconut to a certain extent. But kola nut and the breaking open of kola nut is a West African and probably Central African tradition. Okay. And the nib, that little tiny bud that's inside the kola nut, is believed to be able to help you defeat your enemies. So Olodumare said, in the morning we will see who is able to break the kola nut of Ashe. Whoever can break the kola nut of Ashe will be the Orisha that will be the head. Okay? So the Orisha were all excited. Everyone was there. All of the Orisha were there. So who was there? Name some Orisha that were there. Shango Kabiesi. So strong. Oh yeah. The warrior. Who else was there? Okay. That's enough. Who else? Oh, Batala, the old and wise, right? Who else was there, Marco Chalet? Eshu, the trickster who knows everything, right? Knows the ins and outs. Everybody's getting a chance. Okay, who else was there? Come on. Oshun. Oshun was there, the beautiful, the youngest one, the one who has everybody's love. Who else was there? Yemanja, the mother of all, was there. All of these Orisha were there. We missing some. Who else was there? Egungun was there, the ancestors, right? Oba was there, right? Shango's wife, the beautiful, the loving Oba. Who else was there? You know what? Barack Obama's ancestors were there. Who else was there? Ibeji was there, the twins. Who else was there? We're missing two that I can think of right offhand. Ogun, the carrier of all metals. Right? He got the guns, he got the machetes, he got the chains. He up in there, right? Who else was there? Arumala, the witness of fate, who knows everything. Oshoshi was there with his bow and arrow, right? All of the Orisha were there. Now, if we are going to add one Orisha that we all forgot to mention, Ori, your head. If we are going to guess who would be able to break the kola nut of Ashe, I wonder. No, who? Why? Ogun is there with his machete.
No,
And with a gun, Ogun can shoot it over with his pistol, can he?
it's because he's the smartest.
Nubia already knows this story. So all of the Orisha were there. And Olodumare said, in the morning we will rise at sunrise and we'll see who can break the kola nut of Ashe. But they were all there. They were like a family. What do we do as African people when we all get together? Kick it. Obakoso was there, right? He was playing the baton. Oshun was there giving it to him. What? Right? Ogun was there, what? What? Y'all don't know nothing about that? Or y'all was swirling? Oh, you ain't got nothing on me? You ain't got nothing on me? Oh, I was like, y'all always trying to outdo somebody. Y'all know I'm the baddest up in here, right? This is what we do as African people when we get together. That when y'all was in the kitchen making up the fufu. They got plenty good fufu. He out there passing it out, everybody eat. Yemanja giving it to him because Yemanja has the biggest backside. So Yemanja was in the kitchen giving it to him. What? You know, tomorrow. It's like, what do I do when all of my children come home from school and they in here kicking it? I'm just in my bedroom watching. Like, wow, they are really out there making a whole bunch of noise. So that's what Olodumare was doing. This is interesting. Because I know I told these people we was rising it down, right? So I was kicking it, everybody was giving it to them, kicking it, doing their thing, right? Everybody drinking, the palm wine flowing, the music good. You know, it's the bata drum, it's the djembe, what? It's the kutiro, got a little sabar going on. It's happening, right? You know, whatever the ancient version of dance hall. You know? So, all of the Orisha were together. And when dawn came, only one remembered to rise and salute Olodumare. Only one, right? So it was only Ori that rose at dawn and saluted Olodumare. And when you salute Olodumare at dawn, you prostrate yourself, you roll on the ground. So Ori remembered to rise and roll on the ground to salute Olodumare. So then the time came, Olodumare presented the kola nut of Ashe. And each Orisha came forward, having forgotten that they were supposed to rise at dawn. And of course, Obakoso came, right, with his Oshe. This is only a small kola nut. Small thing, right? This is the O'Shea that causes thunder and lightning. He said, ain't nobody gonna even think and worry about whether or not I can open the cola nut of O'Shea. He was ineffective. So Ogun was like, that's what you get for always trying to get in front of somebody. Oh man, you know you my younger brother. He came out with a beautiful machete that cuts away all obstacles in the universe. Any obstacles that we're ever facing, Ogun cuts them away, right? So this machete, this machete don't ever mix. No. It ain't nothing this machete can't cut. So of course he can cut open this cola nut. It's a small cola nut, a small thing. Tries to cut it open. Nothing happens. Obatala says, allow me to come forth with some wisdom and some chanting. You know, I'm gonna come up in there, I'm gonna own it open, you know, Obatala come, you know, it's all mental, you know. Cola nut of my shade is just sitting there, it don't even jiggle, you know. You're like, I'm giving it my best stuff. Cola nut of my shade don't move. Oshun comes forward. Surely it's just required just a little beauty and a little love, you know, a little lusciousness, you know. So Oshun comes, she ain't got on nothing but, you know, some waist beads, you know, some elacates, you know, she got on some anklets, but she come forward twirling, she's dripping in honey, you know how we do, daughters Oshun, y'all know how we do. She come forward, she's Cola nut. How you doing? Come on, Cola nut. Cola nut don't do nothing, right? Just sitting there. Yamanja comes forward. Y'all just haven't had enough power to bring the power of the whole ocean with me. And surely this opens everything, right? Don't nothing stay closed when the whole ocean stands up, right? You have a tsunami, don't nothing stay closed, right? And she done brought the power of the whole ocean. She pulls it back, cold nut of Ashe still sitting completely intact. One by one, all of the Orisha came forward to attempt to break the cola nut of Ashe. And it was only Ori who came and was able to merely open it. So it is Ori that is actually the head of all Orisha. Ori is the head. Ori is the head, and Ori is the head of all Orisha. No Orisha will bless you or can bless you without the consent of your Ori. So if your ancestors have a financial blessing waiting on you that they are trying to give you, and you are sitting there talking yourself out of it and telling yourself why you don't deserve it, then you're not going to get it. No Orisha can bless you without the consent of your Ori. Yes, ma'am. Because Ori did what it was supposed to do. Ori made it praise to Olodumare at sunrise. And I'm going to get to that because this is how we are able to break the cold nut of Ashe in our lives. So no one can bless you. None of these other Orisha are allowed to act without the consent of your Ori. Nothing in your life will move towards the fulfillment of your destiny without the consent of your Ori. So Egungun first, because Egungun is your entrance into connection to the spirit realm. But after understanding Egungun, you must understand Ori. You must form a connection with your Ori. And you are born through your Ori. You're born with a connection to your Ori. But this is a voice that in this society, you lose the ability to listen to. You forget how to listen to it. So we have to remember how to listen to Ori.
I don't want to.
Kelly.
I don't want to.
So, as my coach asked,
I don't want to.
how do you break the cola nut of Ashe? How did Ori break the cola nut of Ashe? How do we in our lives break the cola nut of Ashe? When you rise in the morning, you give thanks to your Ori, okay? To your head. I'm going to teach you right now how to do it. Say it after me. Ori Nikan,
Ori Nikan,
Loto Alasan,
until I stand,
Barokum.
Baroku,
Orimi
Orimi,
Iwani. Bimoba Timolaye. Orimi Orofun. Orimi Iwani. What is the next one? Bimoba Boko. Bimoba, I'm thinking Boko Ire. Bimoba Ire Bokbo. Ire. Ire Bokbo. Orini Orofun. Orimi Iwani. And what's the last one? If that's the second one. Okay. Okay, that's it. And I'm sorry, I'm old. So so Bimo ba lowo lowo. Lowo lowo. Orini Orofun. Orimi Iwani. This is what you say every morning. What does this mean? It is Ori alone who can accompany his devotee on the journey of life without turning back. If I have money, it is Ori I will praise. My Ori, it is you. If I have children in this lifetime, it is Ori to whom I will give the praise. My Ori, it is you. All good things that I have while I'm on the physical plane, it is Ori that I will praise. My Ori, it is you. So that's how, my Koshale, you break the kola nut of Ashe. You remember to pay homage to your Ori. Sit the pillow down. Come and sit over here. And the way that we pay homage to Ori is by remembering Ori in that same way every morning. And I'll send. I put the Yoruba in the comments. But for me in the morning, I do the English. I've gotten, and it's my bad for getting off the path of saying the Yoruba, but I do the English. But every morning when you rise, this can be before you get out of bed. This can be something that you do mentally. This can be something that you do once you're completely up. You have to pay homage to Ori. Pay homage to your Ori. When you remember your Ori, then this is what gives you the ability, the strength, the spiritual power to access the ashe that you need for the day. Okay? This is why they call it breaking the kola nut of ashe. Right? You break open that thing that has the ashe in it that you need for the day. So you set your foundation for the day. Your Ori is your spirit, your foundation, your guide for this lifetime. Ori is only for this lifetime, right? Everything has Ori. The Orisha have Ori. This chair has an Ori. That table has an Ori. Everything has Ori. This is how our ancestors understood it. This is why when you go and get divination, that's who the diviner is speaking with. The diviner is speaking with your Ori. The Orisha that diviner is an avatar for speaks directly to your Ori. And then they share that information with you. Because these are things that you may have forgotten. These are things that you may have strayed from. These are things that you may not remember. So this is who is being spoken to during divination. So when you read, say, a book like 16 Calories or something like that, that has divination stories, and they say, well, Oshun went to get a divination, or Umala went to get a divination, because they all have Ori. Okay? Ori is your spiritual guide in this lifetime. And it, according to our ancestors, resides in your head. There is an outside Ori, which is this physical thing, and there is what they call Ori Inu, which is the spiritual thing. So Ori Inu is what we focus on when we rise in the morning and pay homage to Ori. It is that spiritual inside Ori. Ori, our ancestors say, you know that Ori is your guide throughout this life because it is the first part of you to leave your mother. So it guided you into the physical realm. Ori is where your destiny is. Ori is what holds your destiny. So it is Ori that reminds you when you are off the path of your destiny. It is Ori that remembers what destiny it is that you chose before you were being born. So everything, this is why the that invocation, and there are the thinking of right now maybe 4 or 5 different invocations that are generally used for Ori here in the West. That is one that was taught to us by Metahochi. And if I look, I can tell you which Odu it came from, but he pulled it straight from the Odu for us to use. But that wasn't the first one that I learned. So there are many, many different invocations for Ori. That one is my favorite because it explains it so succinctly. Everything that you have in this life, it is Ori that you should praise first because it is Ori that leads and guides you there. When I was a little girl, old people would talk about listening to your first mind. And that's what they would say. When they, I should listen to my first mind. I knew I shouldn't have done that. Right? Where I'm from, you don't just let anybody cut your hair. You don't just let anybody do your hair or be all on your head. That's considered very dangerous. When I was a little girl, schools had just recently been desegregated. So my mother was not used to and as a matter of fact, me and my little sister were the first children that my mother had given birth to that went to school with white people. So she wasn't used to her children being in school with white people. And so she told us when we went to school, don't ever let those white people touch your hair. Don't ever let them comb your hair, take your hair down. That was considered a dangerous thing to have somebody in your head. We were raised to not, you only have very specific people in your head because it was understood that your head carry the majority of your power. I'm from those people who you take all the comb hair and stuff out of your comb when you go to somewhere to get your hair done. Take all that out of your comb and you burn that. You burn it or you wrap it up in tissue paper. You put it way underneath everything else in the garbage can. Where I'm from, when you go to the barber shop and you get your hair cut, first of all, these modern barbershops today are interesting to me because there's hair on the floor before you get in the chair. That never happened at home because with each person, the barber would sweep up the hair and then ask that person, do you want it? Or do you mind if I discard of it? Yeah. That was the tradition where I was from. You didn't never just leave the barbershop and leave your hair all there for anybody to get into. You didn't do that where I was from. Nobody did that, you know. So that tradition of the head holding your spiritual power is complete to me is completely and totally still intact even amongst those of us here because I grew up with that tradition. So that when Metahochi first started teaching us about Ori, I was like, oh, well, this is why they do that. And those days that I would come back from that desegregated school, from that integrated school with my hair having been taken down and somebody having messed around in my hair, I would get a whooping for that. My mother was like, you do not know what those people are going to do with your hair. So don't just let people just mess in your hair. Anything can happen. If somebody gets some of your hair, they can do anything. And isn't it, to me, it's very telling that nowadays we understand that the hair holds the entirety of your DNA. But when I was a little girl, we didn't have that understanding. They didn't teach us that. We learned about DNA in science class, but we didn't know that like a strip of your skin or a strand of your hair had that entire thing. That's new. That's a new understanding for most people who aren't, who don't work in that type of scientific realm. But I was raised with the knowledge that if someone got some of my hair, they could do anything to me. It was as if they had me. That's how I was raised. So our ancestors had a knowledge of this thing, not necessarily calling it DNA, but saying somebody having some of your hair or your fingernails is the same as them having you. That's you. Then you there. They can do anything with you once they have your hair, right? So this is an understanding of Ori. So the first altar that you should have in your home once you become a devotee of the Orisha is your Egungun shrine, your ancestral shrine. The second, after you've done your 9 days of opening up your ancestral shrine, the second altar that you should have is an Ori altar, an altar to your Ori. Your Ori altar is basically an altar to yourself. It is to your highest self. If you have a picture that you feel that you were just in the height of your glory, that's the picture that goes on your Ori shrine. If you can't come up with a color, no color vibes with you, then white is always right. White with the color white is never wrong in the Yoruba tradition. So you do your Ori, white is always right. You do your Ori shrine in white. And let me, because we live in the United States, I got to break down and explain why the color white is right. Don't let nobody misconstrue. Don't misconstrue. So the reason that we use white cloth is because most cloth in traditional African society is very patterned, right? Very beautifully patterned, very colorful, right? So a white cloth in the Orisha tradition symbolizes you being ready to be written upon. You're ready to be patterned. You're ready to be colored upon. So this is why white is a tradition of what we wear, in the religion. So a white cloth is waiting to be done. So when you come to a bimbe, when you come to something like that, you're coming with the anticipation of the deities coming, riding upon you, patterning you. So this is when we say white cloth for shrine, that's what we're talking about. Not that it has no racial connotations whatsoever. There is an Orisha book that's floating around. I will not even mention the title, that says that because Obatala is the king of the white cloth, that Obatala is Caucasian and Obatala was white. There is no Orisha that was white. That does not make any sense. This is a West African tradition. Every deity, when it was anthropomorphized, when it was drawn, when it was carved, was Yoruba. Not only was it black, but it was African and it was Yoruba. Every deity had Yoruba facial features. Every deity had a Yoruba hairstyle. Every deity was wearing Yoruba clothes. So no Yoruba deity. It was not possible 10,000 years ago for them to conceive of a deity being a European man. Why would that be the case? That's ignorant. So the fact that that's being purported is ridiculous and it is blasphemous. And I hope that Obatala meets out judgment upon those who are saying that. There is no Yoruba deity that is white. It's impossible. This is a tradition of West African people. So when I say white is right, I'm speaking of cloth. I'm speaking of the color white, which is devoid of everything, versus the color black, which contains everything because it takes everything in. So just making that clear. So when you do your Ori shrine, you had a question, Mom?
Oh, when you just mentioned, it made me think of albinos.
Mm-hmm.
And how that came to be, because we're actually reading a Kata witch.
Yes.
She's an albino.
Yes.
So just
So albinos, they are sacred to Obatala because everyone who is different from what we consider to be the norm is a special creation of Obatala. So albinos are special creations of Obatala. And our ancestors understood them to have a very special connection to the spirit realm that was different from those of us who have melanin, because most of us have melanin. So to be born without it was very different, but seen as a special connection to the spirit realm. And yes, they are sacred to Obatala. And that it's still, whoever said that has nothing to do with Europeans. That is West African albinos. It's something completely different from a European. But yes, sacred to Obatala, definitely. And those are Obatala's children. And all people who are different in any way from what is the norm in your society are sacred to Obatala. So this is people whose bodies are shaped differently. These are people whose minds operate and work differently. Anyone who is different, that is sacred to Obatala. It's something that he created when he was creating humankind. So, and we'll get to that when we get to Obatala's, of course, the next Orisha we're going to talk about, because we're going in order of hierarchy. So we'll talk about him next. But yeah, so so when you're setting up your Ori shrine, white can be right, and white can be right on any shrine. You want to try to know the colors of the deity that you're dealing with, but if you don't, it's always acceptable to use white. Okay, so for Ori, it's the same. And Ori actually would favor white because your Ori is the part of the body that Obatala governs. Okay, and Obatala's color is white. As a matter of fact, the Oriki that we use for him, Obatala, means king of the white cloth. Tala in the Yoruba language is white muslin, which isn't actually white. It's like a cream color. But anyway, that's that's as white as it's gonna get 10,000 years ago in Nigeria. So Obatala means king of the white cloth, and since he is the governing Orisha of Ori, meaning that's the part of the body, one of the parts of the body that he governs, white is considered very good to have on your ori. And as from the perspective of our ancestors, we shy away from putting very dark colors on our head most of the time because we believe that that's too much energy. That's too high of a vibration to put on your head. Because remember, black contains everything. So if you say white is the absence of everything, black is everything, is the inclusion of everything. So we don't put black on our head because that draws all of that right there on your head. And a lot of times when people are having a lot of headaches, people are having a lot of mental confusion, you don't have a lot of clarity in your life, you got some kind of little black hat or something that you're wearing all the time. You got a black head wrap. Something that you're wearing all the time. It's drawing too much energy to your ori. So lighten it up. Lighten it up. Put a light color. Put a pale color. I don't like pastel colors, but for the head, that's what is good. A pastel color on the head. So white is a good color for an ori shrine. On your ori shrine, you want to have objects that remind you and bring your mind to those places and spaces that make you feel uplifted. So this is you. This is a shrine to you in this lifetime. Everything on it. Your Ori shrine should be high. This is one of the deities that likes to be high. Ori is a deity. This is one that likes to be high. So as high as you can put it, the higher the better. Unless under special circumstances, some people do like to be on the ground very low. It's a high shrine. Okay. When you are 7 years old in our tradition, you receive the consecrated objects of the Ori shrine. So this is what we call the hand of Ifa. Okay, that is the objects that are symbolic of your Ori, the objects that you receive when you receive your hand of Ifa. So all of the objects that you get on your hand of V5, when you get your hand of V5, should be on your Ori shrine. Up until the point, and those of us who didn't get that at that time, those of us who missed that, that's fine. You can still have an Ori shrine. You will still be communicating with your Ori. It will not be consecrated until you receive those objects. Okay? The person who gives you the objects that go on your Ori shrine has to be a person that is initiated into Orumala. Yes, sir.
What about me and Lily? We don't have to do that.
No, you haven't gotten it yet.
When I get 7,
I know.
not 10.
You haven't gotten it yet. You have it? Is somebody in your bed? Okay. So you can go to bed if you would you like to go to bed. Yes or no? You can if you would like. So those are the consecrated objects that you receive at that time. Okay. And after you receive those objects, anytime that you are getting divination from a Babalao, those are the objects that should be used to do that divination. So that is if you're reading 16 calories, they will say he or she went to get a divination and they brought their divination set. That's what they're referring to. The divination set is what you will receive when you receive your hand of Ifa. So those are the objects that are consecrated to one's Ori. From a traditional perspective, the container that you put those in is covered with cowries. Is completely cowrie covered container. Because cowries are symbols of wealth and purity. Cowries, of course, come from the water, so they also symbolize communication with the spirit realm. So the traditional, and you can look it up. I'm trying to think if they may call it Ori vessel. I've done like Google searches and seen like the ancient ones. They're so beautiful. It's like a leather type vessel, and they've sewn cowries like all over it, so it's just completely covered in cowries. Now, you may have noticed that every altar once it is consecrated, has to have a vessel on it with objects in that vessel. Why is that?
Because I guess that's where you're pulling the whatever that orisha is into.
Yes,
That's
and
where you
what
want them to sit and be.
exactly? What is that? What is that, metaphorically speaking?
That is your own.
Right, but what is that
Your
vessel?
destiny.
Yeah.
Is it like they're what am I trying to say? Like the king thief? Or like their throne.
It is, but what is that vessel a
Symbolizing
symbol
the
of?
calabash of life, like,
Which is a what?
Oh.
It's a womb. You don't have any altar that is consecrated that doesn't have a womb on it. There is no initiation that can take place in our tradition without a woman being present. Because nothing can be consecrated without what? Even we cannot be consecrated to the Orisha without a womb. Now, I was in Nigeria. One of my close brother friends was going to become a Babalawo, going to get his initiation into Ifa, into Arumala, or also known as Ifa. And his fiance had not come with us. And so when it was time for his the completion of his initiation, they had to come and find me because all of the women in the household had gone to do something else. All the Yoruba women were gone. So they came to find me. And they were like, well, we can't finish it up because ain't no women. You the only woman that's here. Somebody has to come and sit for him. If I had not been there to sit for him, he would have had to wait. Right? We are very much taught that Yoruba society, Nigerian society is a patriarchal society. And I am not in any sort of way saying that is not how it comes off. That's not what I'm saying. But the spiritual power of women is very much understood, very much utilized, very much revered. You can't do anything without a woman being present. And without, of course, so many things you can't say. So without saying all of those things that I'm not allowed to say, you can't do anything without a woman being present. Which means that a group of women can do things. But a group of men without women being present cannot do anything. And there is an Odu that says that. There is an Odu that says if you attempt to do anything without women being present, it will crumble. Yes, brother.
Can I give an example?
Yes, you have an example? Huh?
Like in Hidden Figures?
Okay. What do you mean like in Hidden Figures?
The three women help the Russian.
You got to give me the whole thought. Don't just give me part of the thought.
Three women that help make the Russian go to the moon and into space. In the first place, they couldn't have done. America couldn't have done it without them, and their whole group was mostly men.
Yes, excellent. So I don't know if y'all heard him, but what my son is saying is that the movie Hidden Figures is a wonderful example of that. So he's saying NASA was a place that had mostly men, but they would not have been able to send a man to the moon without the help of those women. Excellent, son. Excellent. And that is, no, you're going to sit right here. You're doing too much when you over there. So that is basically what our ancestors taught, was that nothing will be successful without the help of women. And this includes initiation, this includes the building of society, this includes whatever you're doing. So no initiation takes place without a woman being present. So that would be like the womb of your Ori shrine, is that vessel that includes your consecrated Ori items. You propitiate Ori daily. In an ideal sense, you are able to go before your shrine and you are able to prostrate before your shrine every day. That is the ideal. If you are not able to do that daily, make sure that you revere your Ori. Make sure this is how you center yourself for the day. This is how you get yourself ready for any part of the day. So you do this daily. You can do it after you've done everything. You get in your car and you're driving on your way to school or work. You can do it when you're in the shower. You know, the ancestors prefer, the spirits prefer that it is not done before you wash your face and brush your teeth. It is akishe to go before the spirits without your face clean and your mouth clean. But if you must, you can do it before you get out of bed. Everything in the tradition is practical. So, as always, as African people, we have a beautiful ritualistic way that we prefer for everything to be done, right? As mothers, we have a specific way that we prefer for our children to come and ask for things from us. And when and if they ask in that way, they're definitely going to get whatever they ask for. If the situation is such that they don't get to ask in that specific way, that doesn't mean that we're not going to give them what they want, right?
Mhm.
That does not mean that you then allow yourself to not ever do it the proper ritual way. I don't ever have to do it that ritual way. That's not what that means. That means that when the situation calls for it, everybody understands that you don't do it that way. You know, when you can't, then it's fine not to do it that way. But for the most part, you want to set it up so that you're able to go before your Ori shrine and pay homage to your Ori. And like I said, I put the prayer that I was reciting in the comments for this, and that can be used by anyone. You don't have to have an initiation. Nobody has to consecrate anything. That is between you and your Ori. Okay. And I believe that's it. Is there anything I didn't cover? And I don't know. I was thinking about this all week. I don't know any songs for Ori, which is odd. And I don't even know. I don't know any to the degree that I wonder if there are some. But it just wouldn't be African for it not to be in.
Right, I was gonna ask you about that.
So there has to be some. And I somehow just don't know them.
I used that prayer and turned it into a song a couple years ago, and I can't remember how it goes now. Like, I have to think about it. If I remember by next week, I'll share.
Yeah. Yes, please do. Because I mean that's what we did. You know, that's a lot of the songs that I know, Madahochi just took verses from Odu or things like that and just turned them
Because this is
into
how
a
it helps
song.
me remember it
Yeah.
to a tune.
Yeah.
So that
Me
that
too.
was it. Yeah.
Me too. So I don't know any Ori songs. I apologize for that. If Ori songs exist, then they have not been taught to me. I have not been taught them. Metahochi was one of the first initiated individuals on this side of the globe to talk about Ori. So there generally in the West is a lot of focus on the Orisha, a lot of focus on who your Orisha is and the Orisha that rules your head. But he taught us that the primary focus has to be Ori. And so that I teach from that perspective as well. But he was one of the first priests to begin to, reintroduce this concept of Ori. So I'm sure there has to be a song, but I don't know it. So any other questions? We had a lot of questions and comments throughout, but I didn't know if anybody had any more that they wanted to ask.
Um, you know those situations where you can like have your shrine like set up kind of like stairs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an okay situation? Like if you were to have your ancestral shrine on the bottom and maybe your Ori shrine on top of like a thing that has.
I don't recommend putting everybody in the same place. Like even right now in my house, because I'm still looking for shelves, everybody's in the same place. And I don't recommend that. It's not really good because everybody doesn't feel like they have their own space. If you have to, then yes, do it and it's fine. But when you're in the position, as soon as you're in the position not to, then no, they shouldn't be. Specific things can go with specific things, right? So, for example, if you have to put your Ori shrine and your Obatala shrine together, then that goes together because Ori is a part of your body that he, governs. If you would have to put your ancestral shrines with somebody, then it would have to be with Oya, So you putting your Ori with your ancestors, probably not a good idea because everything in that ancestral realm should be honoring that ancestral realm. And since you're still in the physical realm, then you don't want to be, putting things with that has to do with the ancestral realm. So nothing on your Egungun shrine should have anything to do with anybody that's living. Even if you slip and drop like a piece of your jewelry or something on it, you want to snatch it off as quickly as possible. You don't want it to have that energy of the ancestral realm on it. You shouldn't eat anything off the ancestral shrine.
Tati.
You too. You and Camille. So you shouldn't eat anything off anything that you put on the ancestral shrine belongs to the ancestors. So if you make a mistake and put something on there and leave it for too long, then you have to ask if you can remove it because you don't want to be carrying that energy of that, with you.
Would that be safe for like your Orisha shrine? Because I have certain things that I feel like connect about like a shoe shrine or whatever. Like, I don't know if I can use this anymore, But then there's some things that are on there that I do take.
Right. Well, it depends. It depends. Like for me, the things that are on my Oshun shrine, I feel very comfortable using those as well. If it's jewelry or something like that, then I'm sitting it there to get her energy on it.
But like
so that's
saying, if you put something like money on there, I'll never.
Right. Well, unless you're sitting it there for her to multiply the money, then you may be putting it there for her to multiply it, and then you take it back. So that may be something that's happening. So as far as objects, then no, that's different from your ancestral shrine. If you're putting objects on your Orisha shrine, then those generally are things that you can take back and forth. If you have a consecrated Orisha shrine, meaning that you've been initiated or that you've received that Orisha, then you do ask, do you mind, or is it something that you wanted to keep? If you don't, then generally you will feel whether or not that's something you should take back and forth. Ancestral shrine objects that are sitting there, and usually you leave those. Usually those are for them, and they have that ancestral energy that shouldn't be anywhere but with those who have gone on to the ancestral. Mm-hmm. Is that it? If that is it, we can say toe, which we haven't been doing. Toe. And that's it. I'll put the words for the prayer up in the comments for those who are watching remotely. And thank you guys for joining us. Peace.